Excuse me. Hey, Joe. Cazzo! Look at all this destruction you created. What the hell are you standing on? No periscope. A periscope? What the hell are you doing with a periscope out in here? I don't know. What do you want me to say? That's the guy who created us. Oh. Hey, why'd you do that? Oh, you're gonna answer me? Joe, the guy ain't talking. Forget about that cats and ghoul. Let's get the hell out of here. Let's go kill the people. Right up your ass. Stay tuned for the next adventures of Joe Bud, where Joe Bud is in search of water. Oh, creatures, if you smoke, don't smoke, it's gonna kill you. So if you smoke, don't. You know why? Because you're gonna die. It's gonna kill you. So if you smoke, don't smoke. Joe Bud loves you, so vaffanculo, okay?
Anyway, folks, I had not watched that video prior to its debut. Thank you, Dan. I was afraid it was going to be something even less tasteful than what we got. So, joining us tonight.
I thought it was an audition for Doctor Who.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. So joining us tonight is my fellow co-host and fellow traveler, Dan the Dan Noodles man, apparently the Joe Bud of Wargaming. And our very special guest this evening is Mr. Steve Fratt, whose audio is also joining us this evening. So we will not hopefully need to do sign language and place cards and all that stuff. So Steve, let's talk about Origins, which actually starts this Wednesday. You're going to be there the entire time, right?
Yes, I will.
As will I, more or less.
Yep.
So, and how long have you been going to Origins?
Well, truth be told, this will be my third time.
Oh my goodness!
It'll be my third time.
Oh my goodness!
And so the first time was, well, let's say 25 years ago or something like that. War of the Ring just came out, or close to when it came out, and Fantasy Flight was offering it there. And I was teaching History of Middle Earth at my college. And I was doing Lord of the Rings. So I made a 9-foot by 15-foot map of Middle Earth and used larger figures to run War of the Ring. And so I came there, I set up next Fantasy Flight. They turned and looked at me and they said, "Oh, are you going to demo the game?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I intend to do." And then later on, I found out that Roberto Di Meglio, who designed the game, was there from Milan, Italy. And Ares Games has it now, but at the time they were Fantasy Flight was releasing it in the United States. So when I heard that he was there, I started to freak out a little bit. I thought, I painted this map without getting permission. And so I thought, oh man, am I getting set up to get sued here? So he came by later and it blew him away. Essentially blew him away. And what that started then for these years is I've been involved when I can with the playtesting, the expansions to War of the Ring. And on occasion, my students were involved with that. And we've been getting off and on credits with the expansions. And so it's been great.
Well, and Steve, so, I've got bad news for you. This Origins will be my 30th Origins.
Jesus.
Now, one of those was the Origins and Gen Con put together in Milwaukee. for the
Oh,
record.
yeah.
I keep forgetting about that one, but I did go to the. They did that twice. I went to the second of the two.
What year was that?
Oh God,
In
I
the
don't
90s?
remember. But it was in. It would have been in the. Yeah, it would have been in the 90s.
I probably would have been. I probably was there with my 6mm Napoleonics.
There you go.
I was probably
Yeah.
at that one.
It's a good
Because
thing it
it's
wasn't
an hour
a gun.
away from home. So yeah,
Mhm.
that was what you get to.
I'd like to interject. Can I interject?
Please interject, Dan.
Okay.
You're
Steve.
normally so shy about interjections.
Yes, of course. Steve, for the people out in the world, who the hell are you? How did you start? What's going on? So, third origin, I would think you'd be at the. God, you see, everything age comes in. I would think you'd be at the first origin. You know what I'm saying?
I lived in California. I grew up in East LA. Monterey Park. So that was quite a trip. But I played Avalon Hill games all through the 60s. And I remember waiting for the new one to come out. And Bill's Toy Store had them all. And but then Bill's Toy Store also had HO figures from Airfix. So it was board game, miniatures, and back and forth. And I'll tell you what got me more.
So you were into miniatures back then also?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And during the 60s, when the Civil War 100th anniversary was, American Heritage Book of the Civil War had this.
What's that?
That's Battle of Bull Run. This is 2-page spread by David Greenspan. And so I saw that and I said, boy, I want to do that. But then my dad worked at Sears, and so for Christmas, I would get the Marx play sets. And so I got a Civil War play set with, 50 Federals and maybe 40 Confederates. How am I going to do this? So the first answer to that was Airfix figures down at Bill's Toy Store, a penny each.
Even back then, man.
Yeah. And I was interested in history. And Dad would take me to the movies. We go twice a month and we would see double features for a quarter. And 2 cartoons. We'd be there for 3 hours plus. And then we go out to have a snack afterwards, lentil soup, Rofer dressing, salads. And then we also went to the library like twice a month. And when we go up to the library, it's one of these old Carnegie libraries, that were built like the turn of the century.
Where in California did you live?
Monterey Park. It's in East LA.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 8 miles from downtown LA.
You didn't happen to go to the Monterey Pop Festival, now did you?
No.
Okay.
So that's how I got into military history. The bookmobile would come to the school, and I'd take out We Were There at the Battle of Gettysburg. We Were There at the Alamo. And then the movies we saw had battles. Zulu, the 300 Spartans. And so we would see, in fact, on TV, they would have the $1 Million movie. Wow, $1 million. They'd run it for 6 nights. So all the kids in the neighborhood would see the movie. They were about an hour and a half, 2 hours with commercials. And then we'd play it during the week. So when we saw the 300 Spartans, we got our garbage can lids as shields and then poles. And, we fought these battles 2 against 2.
What about the cops?
What's that?
What about the cops?
The cops?
Yeah, the cops, the police.
Kids playing around back in the day.
Yeah,
that was
playing around with a spear and a spear.
That was not a big.
Well, and to note, when we played Army, it was World War II. Combat, World War II, and our parents were in World War II, so the weapons we had looked authentic.
That's scary.
My proud possession was the Browning automatic rifle. It looked like one. And it had the battery and bup, 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 bup. It had the right kind of sound to it. Oh, that was cool. So when I joined World War II reenacting about, let's say 15 years ago, when I could move more easily, what's the weapon I wanted to hold on to?
The bar.
The BAR. Weighed like 26 pounds. And then I'd strap 100 rounds of ammunition in magazines to me, all those paratrooper pockets all over. And boy, that was fun. That was playing
Man,
army.
Steve, can you imagine in real life these guys had to carry all that weight while being shot at?
Exactly.
I mean,
Well,
and
they
you're
were
19
they
years
were in
old,
better
19
shape than us
years-
oldsters.
Absolutely, they were.
But you're
Yep.
still 19, 20 years old, man, for God's sake. You don't even have pubic hair.
I suppose some maybe were challenged with that.
Jesus.
Anyway,
Yeah, so what that did, I think what that did, now there was important stuff going on there because we shared who are going to be the bad guys, who are being the good guys. And as we did that in neighborhood play, I think what it instilled in us was a sense of aspiring to live a heroic life. And we shared as we played army, we allowed the other guys to be the heroes at times. So it was like sharing the drama that we saw on the screen, and then we were acting it out. And that has some significance, at least to me, in the way I approached life.
The benevolence of that act. It should happen more often today. But anyways.
So, what are you going to be running at Origins this year, Steve?
Okay. Well, last year I brought Austerlitz, and you saw both versions, the hex and the non-hex, because I thought, well, I wanted to get there to Origins again and maybe get noticed for what I was doing. And so that worked pretty well. But then I looked around at Origins. I thought, you know what? I'm going to be writing my Napoleonic rules, but I thought, I bet if I brought my Silmarillion game, that would really wow some people. And they enjoy it. It's unusual. No one's really published one. And so what I ended up doing along the way, since I was involved with Ares games and these expansions to their War of the Ring, around 2010, I decided to add the Silmarillion to my class, semester-long class during the regular semester. We were going to spend 5 weeks on the Silmarillion. So to make it understandable, I painted a map, 5 poster boards worth, to scale with the War of the Ring map I painted. And so when we talked about the Silmarillion, I had the map out there, and we could recount the chronology of what was going on, and they could visualize it.
Man, that's
in the process of doing that, I also created a game.
That's a good idea, considering many people's initial reaction to the Silmarillion.
Yes.
I loved the book instantly.
I agree, but no, I was called crazy on TikTok sometime last year for saying that was my favorite of Tolkien's books.
Oh, that is my favorite. My favorite.
Well, things have moved along because Christopher, of course, did novelizations recently of the parts of the Silmarillion. And I haven't gotten to those two yet. I'm busy writing rules. But when I was studying the Silmarillion, I found out that what I needed to do, I needed to listen to it. Because then I learned the pronunciations. And then using Anne Fonstad's map, her atlas.
Yeah, but who's doing the narration? Who's doing the narration?
Middle Earth, I was able to locate, and this helped me paint the maps. And this is a great aid. Anyone that loves Tolkien needs to get this atlas.
Yeah, I've got it. I have it in paperback.
Me too.
So that allowed me to construct the game, which also I was able to use as a teaching tool. And for 50 years of teaching, I've integrated games into my teaching. In fact, at a 40-year reunion at Westmont College, where I graduated from, I was there for something else, and the class behind me was there. So I went to their reunion, and 2 guys came up to me and said, Steve, you taught as a teaching fellow, as a student, you taught the Napoleonic Wars, and I was using SPI games, board games. And they said, we were so impressed with that we were using games throughout our teaching 5th graders.
5th graders?
That's a win. They found a way to adapt it to the kids they were teaching. And I had no idea of this, but just that first class I taught at the college level as a senior at college had that kind of impact on teachers. And so I guess I was all in from that point on, and I didn't know I had that impact.
How was the response from your classes, man? The students?
It was amazing. In fact,
they locked in
with the Lord of the Rings ones. I'd say for 15 years I was teaching them, and my colleagues started to say, "Oh, gee, you're getting students for that? The movies are long gone."
Okay.
Now, yeah. I think you said, but how old are we? What is the age of the students here?
College.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't get any of this in my.
Yeah.
Despite going to Catholic grade school, we didn't get any of this.
Are you kidding, man? Yeah. We didn't get that shit.
So, well, along the way, I've gone to different elementary schools, like at Wheaton Christian Grammar School. I'm a Christian, so I've done things within our community. So there's this one guy that saw me do my thing when he was at the seminary across the street from the college. He saw me outside in armor teaching. So we connected, and once he started teaching, what I do every January, the first week, I go to his elementary school class, and they have exploratories. And so they have a morning and afternoon class, and we've been able to get about 20 kids in the morning and afternoon playing war games. And this last year, it was all Axis and Allies. And I painted large, maps for elementary school, 5th grade.
They're playing Axis and Allies.
Yes.
You get somebody that knows what they're doing. It's not complicated.
It's easy.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
well,
can you imagine me when I'm in elementary school, the attention span?
Oh God.
Well,
I was probably 12 or so when I played Axis and Allies first.
And Avalon Hill games for kids 10 and above. Well, I was playing them age 8. Each individual has their own track of maturity and all of that. So when we have 20 kids, what you get is you get a couple alphas running the show, and then we do it as teams, not individuals. And so some guys, some are more pensive or reflective. They sit, but man, they're learning. They suck it all in like a sponge. And then the alphas run the show. So we have a spectrum of learners experience that, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So the way
your teaching skills.
Yep.
It's your character, eh? It's not what you've learned how to be a teacher, this and that. You've just animated.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's what makes an interesting subject, man. It's you sit down and man, you animate the Silmarillion. I'm there.
So with my colleagues,
I'll take pictures for you, Dan. I'll tell you how awesome it was.
My colleagues in the ed department, is all about, you got to have, at times, should I say this? Yeah, I can say this. It was like they were put in charge to teach the college professors how to teach. But it was an elementary school orientation. You need to come alongside the students and show them that you're learning with them. And I'm thinking, well, that applies sometimes, but not when you're doing Axis and Allies. You're trying to give them direction. Or, well, I'll tell you this one. Our college folded, COVID and all of that, small, we couldn't get enough people. So I'm going to mention this too. I'm going to say that I remember one time my popular Civil War class, I was able to get 6 upper level students. We only had about 600 to 650 students in the college. So my majors, I might have had a dozen to 18 at times. So 6 of them wanted to take the Civil War class, and I was told, well, we're canceling the class because, hold on to your socks, man. Research shows that unless you have 10 students, the students aren't going to learn as much. And I have a PhD, and I'm an expert in combat in the Civil War. And the students aren't going to learn much because they learn from each other. Now, that's elementary school stuff. And we're teaching college. So you can imagine the struggles I had, but I just persisted. And the students saw the difference.
Are they stupid? I mean, the administration, what's the matter with you?
That seems like it. That seems like an insane policy to me.
Well, the thing is, I think they had it in for you, Steve.
Well, it's my colleagues in the ed department. It was a matter of professionalization. The way I saw it was, you know, I spent 15 years getting my MA and PhD doing deep work and research. I come out on the other end. I have some confidence about what I know and what I continue to learn. But the ed folks tend to be social science rather than humanities. And so, oh, it's science. So social science is like 2 + 2 is 4? No. Or, F equals MA or 32 feet per second squared. No, that's natural science.
Who are you talking to? Aliens or something?
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
But so I think people in the social sciences, I hope I don't burn too many of your listeners, but sometimes the social sciences know they aren't hard natural science. So they have to maybe claim more than they can to seem legitimate. And frankly, you can see right through it. So that was interesting.
Steve, you were talking about extra material for the Silmarillion that Christopher Tolkien did and you didn't read. I don't know about this. What is this?
Oh, the novels like The Children of Hurin.
There's a Baron in Luthien, and there's a Fall of Numenor too now.
That are hardback books, and I have them, and eventually I'll get to them. But first things first, I'm wrestling with Napoleon this year.
Now, what was your field of study? What was your thesis on?
Okay, so in college, I did a 200-page honors project on the Waterloo campaign. No one will ever top that at my college. 200 pages. I read everything in English, and some of my professors there said it was longer than their dissertations. So that gives you a sense of how when I go in, I go all in.
I get you. I understand.
Stayed at 5th year, got a philosophy degree, went to Fuller Seminary for a year, felt the call to Christian higher ed, so I transferred back up to UC Santa Barbara, and I did an MA and PhD in intellectual history of science, early modern Europe. And for ancients,
why didn't you tell me you were a studied Christian? I wouldn't have said that joke before. What's the matter?
Okay.
What's the matter with
Steve is a very good sport. Dan was very tasteless before the show.
Entrapment.
Right. So anyway, you're going to be running. What are you running at to get back to Wargaming at Origins and what you're doing? What are you running at Origins this year? I know you're doing the Silmarillion thing. I'm doing
the 5 battles from the Silmarillion. The 6th battle, the War of Wrath, when Eärendil, the human, goes to the Valar and says, "Hey, we need help," and they come. I mean, they just blast right through them.
Yeah, it's like a paragraph in the book.
Yeah,
maybe I'll game that sometime, but I thought what I wanted to do was establish the 5 wars. And so the first one I'm doing, the first and second wars combined, because Melkor takes the Silmarils, the trees are darkened, he comes back to Middle-earth to go to Angband, and then he knows that the Noldor are coming for him. And so what he does, he attacks the elves that are already in Beleriand, the Sindarin, and raids them. That's the first war. But the way I've set it up with the game, I kind of use the device that Roberto Meglio uses for the Battle of 5 Armies in his system, where you're going to have other people arrive, but you can manipulate how soon they get there. So he has a way of the bad guys commit to X number of things going on, and the good guys get to, if it's a lot, the good guys get to draw out CHIT to see if they could get the reinforcements to arrive sooner. So I've incorporated those two together.
Now, Steve, are you playing the game or are you...
You're playing the game.
Yeah, but are you teaching? Are you... you know what I'm saying?
So what I'm going to do is, when they come to play the game, I'm going to say how familiar you are with this. And I'll give 10 minutes to explain what the context is, the historical context, Mm-hmm. And then we'll just start going. And I'll tell you, War of the Ring is such a great teachable game because you roll your action dice, you do one, they do one, back and forth. You're engaged the whole time. It's not go away for 40 minutes, we move, then you move. I mean, their system is really amazing.
You're talking about the Avalon Hill game.
No, I'm talking about War of the Ring from Ares Games, Roberto de Meglio, the Italian guys.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought it was
It's a real solid. I've actually only played the Fantasy Flight version, but it's a very solid game.
Yeah, and well, it's the same game. It's the same game.
That's my good because I bought
They
it.
turned it. The main difference is the first edition has brown colors for the ground, and they greened it up for the second edition. And then the expansions they have are well thought through.
So, Steve, you're a real nerd.
Yes, I am. In fact,
we're all going to Origins together. Dan, what did you think?
Call me Dr. Nerd.
Yeah, there you go.
In fact, I got one when I was at one of our local events, and I was setting up to see if I could have enough tables for my Waterloo game. One guy said that they call me Dr. Games. Now, that was a new one.
I like that. I like that.
I like that too.
I was kind of proud of that, you know. As far as teaching the regular classes, I'm the guy that required essay exams in all my classes.
What's that? You know, I'm Canadian. Essay
exams. You got
to write an essay as the exam.
Oh, essay. I thought
essay. Okay.
Essay. Okay.
And so, taking the line from Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail, I was the guy they hoped they didn't get. Because they really had to try and learn something. It was not memorize this and barf it up on a multiple guess exam. They had to write an essay. But see, that's meaningful. In the end, that's meaningful education. And I stuck to my guns. And later on, students would come to me and say, you know, you did the right thing. I needed to grow up and mature. But you had the right approach.
Not only that, but I'd say that you're getting a better measure of the student's absorption of the material.
Yeah.
Assuming the student didn't cheat or plagiarize.
Well, and they got to come to class with no notes and write the thing. So that means they got to prep it as such. So I'll tell you, you know, it was like pulling teeth. And the students didn't want to learn. They didn't do well. And then word gets out, you know, oh, we tried to fire him and all that.
How about that?
You're getting
I'll tell you. Here's a dynamic that's fascinating. I taught, in order to buy all this stuff you see behind me, I taught 23 years at the local junior college. They knew I was a man of faith. And I taught in the evenings, and I did my Civil War class and, you know, U.S. and World Civ and, you know, Western Civ. And they knew who I was, and I did the essay exams and all that. And what I found fascinating was I got more grief at my own college because they're concerned about enrollment, okay? And tuition.
Yeah, but that's interesting. What the hell?
At the junior college, they saw the high quality of standards I had, and they liked it.
No, but hold on,
that was
Steve.
Interesting.
Why wouldn't that be a draw, what you teach?
Because when students come to college, they expect to do multiple guess exams. That they don't have to learn them. They learn that from K through 12. And in Illinois, the teachers have gotten frustrated over the years because they have to prep them to take exams. And it's not meaningful. I saw my daughter go through this system. So anyway, those are the frustrations of that. So when it comes to doing like these military classes I did, or teaching Lord of the Rings, I did it like every 3 years, and I always had 20 students plus, and my colleagues were just blown away that I'd get the draw. Shame on them. I mean, Tolkien is a Catholic Christian. Okay, we're a Protestant school, and up at Milwaukee, which is a Catholic base university, they have all of the manuscripts. Most of the manuscripts for Lord of the Rings are up there on the artwork.
What do you mean manuscripts? Tolkien's manuscripts.
The handwritten text that got turned into the book.
Okay, what the hell are they doing in the States?
You wouldn't think they would go to Oxford, to be fair.
Well, the story is this. The story is this. At Oxford, common theme, his own colleagues didn't think much of fantasy. I mean, Tolkien is known for the Oxford English Dictionary, for Beowulf, for Old English, and that was his scholarship. So he wrote Lord of the Rings late at night after he did his grading for 12
That's
years.
incredible.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Absolutely, it is.
That's you know what I mean. Regarding the subject, the man can speak for himself.
Yep.
So whatever he writes, it's gonna be whatever he speaks for himself.
Yeah,
so
there's
what the
a
hell?
saying.
Fantasy.
You don't edit Tolkien. I
No,
mean,
you
at
don't.
some point they said he misspelled dwarves. No, he knows how to spell
You
dwarves.
just
Mhm.
leave it. And you know what? I associate Tolkien, because I'm a musician, with J.S. Bach. It's perfect.
Oh,
It's
yeah, okay.
it's a world. You know what? You can't call it fantasy. It's not fantasy. It's outworldly. It's beyond
Yeah,
fantasy, man. It's Jesus. When I read the Silmarillion, I was reading the Bible for the first time.
I understand.
It's interesting that
Now,
you should put it that way.
Yeah.
when you have different cultures. See, as an intellectual historian teaching world history, the West tends to be more scientific in the sense of what are the physical facts, and you go with that, whereas the East tends to go with the truth embedded in the story. So, an example, Jesus does the parable of the prodigal son. Okay, so I explain this to my students about the differences of different worldview. And so the West would come up to Jesus and say, "What was the name of the Father? How about the Son? Where did they live? What country did he go to?" And by doing that, following the facts, you miss the point of the parable. Whereas Jesus was operating a non-Western approach, where the story wasn't the parts of the story wasn't significant. The story was a vehicle to deliver the truth. And in that story, it was about God's love for his creation, for his human beings. You know, the
An
steps that they
attitude
took.
that Tolkien was as you'll know, Steve, was very connected to. He saw his sub-creation, as he
Yes.
called it, sort of a natural, like, extension of God's creation of everything and everybody, right?
Catholics are very keen. Now, I'm a Protestant, but I understand other points of view. And I think where the Catholics have really a good orientation about Christian faith is the image of God. No matter how sinful people are, the image of God is in each one of us. And as a Christian I've been blessed with being able to create a Silmarillion game and teach this to my students. Tolkien talked about we have this creative spirit within us and the desire to do that. It's another form of holy nerddom. So we who are nerds from different walks of life coming together to celebrate being nerds, there's something about God's image in us that we want to create the imagination. So you see, I'm a guy from the humanities rather than the social sciences. It's about the human condition. So, gosh, I'm a historian. I end up teaching history of Middle Earth class. Oh, and
wicked. And you know what? It was the 60s, eh? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I read it in 74 for the first time, and was interested in it, and I got the SPI game and all that. But when I came to Trinity in 1990, I started thinking about offering a Lord of the Rings game class, and of course, then the movies came out, so that kind of said, "Yeah, I'm doing this." So, yeah.
Those movies were an awful long time ago now, to be fair.
Yes. Yeah, 25.
So Alan Salazar asked a great question a while back, and I would
Yes.
actually love to hear the answer to. When you said you were using SPI games in teaching military history, and
Yes.
Napoleonics in particular. Any specific titles you can recall?
Oh, there were a lot of Quadra games that came out, so I was using SPI's Quadra games.
Mhm.
They were cranking them out.
Yeah.
I took Wellington's Victory, okay,
Mm.
and I said, I'm going to put this on a ping pong table. So I took each of the hexes and kind of enlarged them and hexed it out. Each hex was now, I think, 2 inches, and that would mean it was 1 inch is 50 yards, and I drew it on cardboard, cut out layers of cardboard, mounted them on each other, glued them. And of course, over the years, it warped.
Yeah,
But for a while there, I had Wellington's victory map on a ping pong table, 5x9. And another story, when I got back from a Europe trip, fall of 73, I brought with me, some say that I was maybe one of the first to bring Heroics of Ross 6mm to the States. So I brought, I don't know, 500 of them. And somehow that multiplied to 20,000 that I painted 50 years ago. All the major armies.
Me? You painted 20,000 minis.
Yeah. Well, and then that's just Napoleonics.
Welcome to Miniatures Wargaming.
Yeah,
but Steve, with all due respect, people think you're nuts. You know that?
Oh yeah. And then they take a closer look, and if they kind of follow it for a while, they go, "This is amazing."
Yeah, obviously.
This is amazing. Mm-hmm. Why is he doing this? And they start listening, and they start saying, "Oh, I get it. This guy, I'm trying to achieve excellence in what I do. And so I'm not going to be half-baked."
Like you said, once you get into something, it's all the way, man.
Yeah.
And I understand that.
If it's worth doing, it's worth doing in an excellent way. And being an academic, as time went on and I had more control and command of my courses, I could walk in and teach from memory. I did not lecture from notes because I internalized the stories.
It was an œuvre de passion.
I suppose so, to say it in French.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was invited to be a keynote speaker down at Rose Hill Cemetery in Chicago for Flag Day. Okay. And they said, "You got 10 minutes. I can do that. And so I thought of the points I was going to talk about. I wrote them down in my notes, and I went down there and I left my notes at home. But I didn't need them. I did not need them. And to make a long story short, because I wasn't reading a script or from notes, I got through to people. And I told them about my great-grandfather who was in the Continental Army, and he died a pauper. And I told them about in World War II, we went to the beaches of Normandy. We were at the American cemetery at sunset. They brought the flags down. They took one of those flags, triangulated it, gave it to a couple. And we went up to, my wife and I went up to the couple and said, "Wow, that's an honor. Why?" And she said, "My uncle was a pilot in a plane, in a bomber, that had a mission over Le Mans, the city. And they got shot down, and he ordered the crew to bail. And being the pilot, he took the plane beyond the city and crashed it into a field and died, protecting the French." And so the point I was making yesterday was that what it is to be an American, that's part of what it's like to be an American. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, not just Americans. It's all human beings.
Well, yeah,
and that's what's special about Americans who are willing to die for people they don't know, people who are other nationalities. And as a guy that had an appointment to West Point, and I got sick and didn't go, I was pondering the fact that I might die on the battlefield for people I disagreed with. And I said, yes, that's what sacrifice is all about.
Well,
and
that's heavy,
part of what
man.
makes America great.
That's heavy, though. And Steve, going back to your when you were in Normandy and you saw the flag and all that, you saw that, right?
Yeah.
I think that would kill me. That would rip me apart, because every time I see that American cemetery, I'm just right now. I you know what? There's a nation that sent their sons over in another war far away, in a long goodbye.
Yeah.
And Jesus, man.
And Americans had a way of rebuilding people even if they bombed them. So We were in
yes.
Germany. We were in Germany with some students, and we were at a pub trying to find a place to sit. This German invites us to sit down. His story was he lost a leg to American bombing as a boy, but when the Americans came in, an American kind of adopted him. He loved Americans, and my wife and I were sitting there going, "But our bombs caused you to lose a leg."
Yeah, no. Yes.
And he said, "But we're glad you're there." This is before Russia imploded. "We're glad you're there to protect us from the Russians." Whoa. I mean,
no, I know.
man.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I would teach, I try to instill these experiences into the generation of students that came my way.
But you know what, Steve?
Try to do it.
I'm going to push back a bit. I'm going to push back.
Oh,
when
boy.
you say, well, no, it's fine. When you say,
he always says that.
The government,
I get it.
the
Devil's
government
advocate.
and the government and the situations back there were a little bit different.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but I would say there's a lot of other nations that had good hearts, man. You
Yes.
know, like the Anzacs, the Canadians.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And I heard the German paratroopers on Crete, when they heard about the New Zealanders that were opposing them, and they heard that the New Zealanders, the Maorians,
Yeah.
were
Oh,
cannibals.
Jesus. Cannibals. That's good.
So,
I'll
anyway,
go with that.
Gary. So I'm
Yes.
bringing the Silmarillion games, all
Mhm.
5 of them, and I'll be playing them one after the other. I'm going to have 6 sessions, and people could come and they could, if they're not familiar with War of the Ring, they'll learn the system of War of the Ring, which is incredible. And I'd say it's in the top 10 for the last 20 years, the way it plays.
Okay. William Byrd has been commenting that he didn't get off on the movies. Right now, he says it was dull and draggy. God, I'm sorry you feel that way, man.
Well, not everything is for everybody, right?
Right.
And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Now, for what it's worth, I thought the Hobbit movies were dreadful for the most part.
Yeah,
After
and it's
about
the
40,
movie.
there's about 45 minutes of good material in those 9 hours of movies.
Yeah, they stretched it out.
But I
Yes.
mean, if you read the books, it's transcendental, man. It's you bloody hell, just the grass means something. You know what I mean? It's
So
let me share this. This is at Origins, 20 years ago, my first visit. This is me doing this War of the Ring game as a demo for Fantasy Flight. So that's the year I met Roberto Meglio.
And you made that's scratch?
I painted the
scratch?
map. I painted the maps, and then I accessorized. I took combat hets, figures, and elephants I bought in the toy store and painted them up.
You're
as
a real
Mimico.
freak.
Then
I
with
love
that
it, man.
Gary, with that first edition of War of the Ring, they came out
Mhm.
with an expansion, the Twilight expansion.
Mhm.
So this is the invasion of Rohan.
That's
So once
beautiful.
again, I've accessorized, blew up the map, and then they had the invasion of Gondor. And since I was doing this, by golly, I had to get that special Minas Tirith
I was going to
model.
say, yeah.
Yes, I
No?
know where you got
Yeah.
that, man.
Ain't that a shame that I had to buy those things in order to complete the game?
What a tragedy.
What
Here we are. This is the Battle of 5 Armies, my 3D setup. And the guy in the red, that's the guy. That's Roberto de Meglio. He's the designer of this system. And it has held up over the years.
Man, where are all those the things you built? Where are they now?
They're at my house.
Okay.
So you still have all this stuff.
Yeah. So and I've found ways. Before I built something, I realized I had to store it somehow. So this is Helm's Deep, and it's a lot of pink board, but I also used Warhammer walls, and this is the Games Workshop Helm's Deep. I got 4 of those to make the
Oh my
circle.
goodness.
And
Yeah,
then
what did that cost you?
whoa,
What did that cost you?
Games Workshop. Oh my goodness.
I just
Everything looks fine from my side.
Yeah, Steve,
Okay.
how much cash did you spend on that?
From Games.
Um,
well, It was a
I
lot.
couldn't tell you offhand.
The Mighty Fortress alone was whatever they called it. Because I remember that fortress, that castle that Games Workshop did back in the day.
Yes.
And it was expensive.
It was like $150.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we got here? I'm not.
I know you froze. Yeah.
Cancel. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
So,
it looks good.
The reason why I was able to pull it off financially is I was teaching 2 to 4 classes every year at the local junior college as an adjunct. So the money I got from those classes, I threw into helping me teach. So with this one, I wanted to make it look like the movie. So I did Helm's Deep so people could recognize it. This is using my guys, my combat hex figures. I didn't have to paint them. When they started coming out, I said, I'm going all in with them. And I've had them for, 25 years? None of the paint has chipped off of them. I just have them in plastic boxes jumbled together. And they have held up over the years. And then I think I showed you this last time. This is my Minas Tirith. And what you see here, these are Warhammer walls, but the belfries that I bought from Armies of Middle-earth, I had to make these higher. So down below is pink board. Pink board to bring up the Warhammer walls, spray painted, make them higher so that I could have these belfries.
Man, the determination it takes to do that.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Holy smoke! Of course, I had to buy 9 Nazgul from Combat Hex. So I did the 9 Nazgul.
You can't just buy one, can you?
You can't just eat one. And then I built. You don't have to. You could just use the first wall of Minas Tirith, but I wanted the presence there. In fact, that is the 3D puzzle on top there. And when I built that, by golly, I had to build the rest of it. Just had to. And a couple years ago, my buddies and I were involved with the expansion Kings of Middle-earth. So you have the neutrals, you have the good, and you have the shadows. So with the Kings of Middle-earth expansion, you can actually corrupt Theoden to go evil, or Denethor. That puts more action into that. Or Thranduil, or Bard, or Epidale. And anyway, so that brings options. So
Dana Ironfoot at the Lonely Mountain at that time.
There you go.
Steve, let me ask you, Steve, are you married?
Here's the Silmarillion board.
I can verify that Steve is in fact married. I met his wife earlier on the call. Yes.
Yeah.
She's a saint. She's a saint.
She is. She's Barbara Gordon. She's a librarian. She's Batgirl. I married Batgirl. I'm Batman. I married Batgirl.
Good for you, man.
She is the White Lady of Rohan, and I'm Faramir. Okay, so she has 2 MAs, one for library science, one in history of Christianity. She got that when we came to Trinity, and she's the family history person. She's into ancestry, and through that, we found out that both of us are related to Stephen Hopkins' Mayflower. She's just working to confirm that on this trip to Origins. She'll be working up at the Ohio Genealogical Society to make the connection for me to be a Mayflower descendant. God. So we know I am. It's just documenting it. And then Revoir. I'm also Sons of Union Veterans. So my buddy at Trinity IT, he what do you call it? 3D printed these 3 Thangorodrim that are the gates to Angband for the Silmarillion. Now, when I read the book more carefully, actually the mountain ranges behind it are like 35,000 feet. We're talking Mount Everest. I didn't realize that. I wanted him to paint or build these at a greater scale because those are what stand out in my mind. So I'm going along with the, what I see in my mind.
That's okay. If anybody questions the size of the gates of Thangorodrim, Steve, just tell them that you bought The full size version was too expensive, so you got the Stonehenge version.
Or I know what
that's
the
too long.
response
Just
is.
kick him in the nuts.
My response is the Ridley Scott response. Were you there?
There you go.
Steve, what about the snakes, the Balrogs?
Oy.
Were you there?
Snakes?
Oh yeah, the Balrog.
Snakes?
So the Balrog.
Yeah, they called them snakes. Glaurung was called a snake, wasn't he?
No.
So the Balrogs.
They were dragons. They were sometimes called
Dragons.
worms.
I'm calling this Gothmog.
I recognize that model.
This is from Hero Quest. So I bought a dozen of these because they were Balrogs. These work for Balrogs. And were they about the size of humans? I think originally he thought so. And of course, what you find in the you find Durin's Bane down in Moria, that's pretty impressive. I mean, visually, that's compelling. So there's some room for people to embrace what they like on this.
Now,
because regardless of the images, the more important thing is the character of the heroes and what they had to go through, and that's what inspires us as human beings. That's in the way the more
my nemesis. One of my nemesis asks, "What do you get for being a Mayflower descendant?" I mean, I would think bragging rights.
Well, that's part of it. That's part of it. But as a teaching professor, I started to realize with those connections, I could say, I have skin in this game, and it goes all the way back to the start. And so I have a link with my DNA back to the start of this, and you need to learn, you need to know, get a sense of the stories. So this last year, I taught a bunch of homeschoolers about the founding of the country. I started with the Greeks and the Romans, so they can understand what was on the mind of the founding fathers and what they were thinking of, and checks and balances and stuff like that.
You have just answered the question I was about to ask, actually.
Well, Steve, who else are you going to go
on? I was
on
meant to do this.
The Greeks and the Romans. Who else are you going to go on? The Greeks and the Romans.
Foundation of Western civilization, right?
Oh yes,
absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Several people have asked about is this fabulous looking Silmarillion game published? So I will let you explain why it is unpublishable.
Oh my.
Okay. So there's the copyright issue, but what I've done is I started it in 2010, and by the time I got to like 2016, 17, I decided to take it down to Gen Con Indy, and I was on the 50-yard line. As most of the historical miniatures or tabletop miniatures, they put in the football field because to make room for everything else. So I had Roberto DiMeglio and the Ares team come out to see what I had done with the Silmarillion. He already saw what I did with War of the Ring back 25 years ago, so he knew that it would be something we're seeing. So I showed it to him. I explained the basic. I showed him how I took the rules to War of the Ring and added some things to make it fit for the Silmarillion. And then I had a flash drive, and I gave him the flash drive. I said, Roberto, I've gone as far as I can. I don't have the means to get copyright. Anything I do, it's all self-published and all that. But I'm going to give you the files here. And I trust that if the copyright should come around, man, you are the guys that should publish this thing. So I
can't argue with that.
What's the company?
It would happen.
Ares Games.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So now it's published through Ares. So for those who don't know, old John Ronald himself, while he was alive, sold off the movie and apparently television rights to somebody, and those rights were picked up by Saul Zaentz. If you recall the John Fogerty single, Zaentz Can't Dance, that was about him. He and John Fogerty did not get along.
Why do I know that name? Artie, why do I know that name?
He is a music producer. He produced CCR, among other things.
Okay.
So the rights to the Silmarillion, which was published posthumously, everything other than The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit was published posthumously. So nobody has those rights outside the Tolkien estate. And Christopher Tolkien, who Tom Shippey once described as Smog, didn't. I mean, we have to give Christopher Tolkien a lot of credit for giving us all this material, right?
Yes.
So to get that out of the way, but he was not going to let additional rights go.
Right.
And thus far, the Tolkien estate has, as far as I can tell, not let those additional rights go. Yeah. But they have allowed Amazon, because they paid the estate like $500 million.
Yep.
To a little bit of latitude, but they don't have the rights to Silmarillion or Unfinished Tales or Histories of Middle Earth or anything else either.
Yeah,
they just have the appendices. And
yes,
so
which there's a lot in the appendices.
Which Zines had.
Yeah.
And so we got War the Rohirrim from that. A mention of Helm Hammerhand, and he had a daughter. So Jackson expanded that. I really like that movie, that treatment.
I need to see that.
Fan. I'm an Eowyn fan, so Hera.
What are we talking about? What movie? What treatment? What movie?
War of the Rohirrim is an animated version that Peter Jackson produced.
I never saw it.
It just came out like last year.
Oh, yeah, I never saw
it. It's if you like, and they got Miranda Otto, who played Eowyn, to narrate. It's a fascinating story, but it's kind of made up. Well, but it fits in the genre, I think, very well. And then Amazon, I thought Amazon was going to get the Silmarillion rights. I was
excited about that possibility too. That's not what. That is not what we got.
Did you? No.
We have 4 minutes remaining, and Steve, I have to ask you, because I know you'll have an opinion. What is that? And I will not judge. I promise to not be judgy. What are your feelings on Amazon's production of the Rings of Power?
I'm a Batman in Elseworlds. So I'm open to different settings. Okay. So when I look at that, I'm not following the chronology. The chronology's off. And so I thought, if I could say something good about this, I'm going to look at the characterization of the characters and how they handled that.
And
so, Galadriel doesn't seem to fit with Galadriel and Frodo.
No,
but I kind of like her spirit. I kind of like. I like.
I didn't even get that far.
Okay,
I got farther than that.
See, I'm not looking for them to replicate it exactly. I want to see what they're going to do with it. So I've been impressed with the second season. And the interaction between Sauron and Celebrimbor in making the 7 and the 9. And I found out that what they did is they had those two actors film it chronologically so that they could build on this betrayal that you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
usually
very good.
You just shoot it as it can and you have to live with it. But they treated it so that these guys could develop a relationship through the season.
Very good.
Chronological order. That's brilliant. And
I will point out one other thing.
Yeah.
Charles Edwards, who plays Celebrimbor in the show, they do those press tours where they sit a bunch of random people down from the cast and ask them trivia on the material that has been adapted. And the other cast members were like, "Oh yeah, I don't know." And he's like, "Oh yes, it was this." Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I like this guy." I do think he's a little old looking for an elf, but elves are not necessarily all young looking either till they get really old.
Steve,
the way he looks reflects who he is in wisdom.
That's true.
And ability. It's like if the elves were depicted as they truly were, we will be put off by that. But if they look more like, if we can imagine ourselves as being humane as the elves are, now we got this connection. So I understand those things. Okay.
So are you going back? Are you going back to when the Sindarians?
Sindarin.
Yeah, the elves did the what is it? The great when they screwed the other elves there.
Are you talking about the
elves? Well, I'm not refighting the kinslaying.
That's what I'm talking about.
After. What I do have though is while we're fighting this preemptive attack by Melkor against Beleriand elves, the Sindarin, the gray elves.
Yeah.
They're waiting for Feanor to arrive. So when
Right.
Feanor arrives, before all the rest of them, he burns his ships, just like
Son of a
Cortez
bitch.
did. He burned and they could see it afar off, of course.
Yes.
Middle of
Okay.
the universe.
Because the
Got
world's
some-
flat at the time.
Yeah.
So-
So what I like in the end, what all of it does, two things stand out for me. It encouraged me to be creative and to go and to do what I've done,
You're
to
talking about
visualize it and to
Tolkien.
share it with others. So
I think you're
count on
speaking.
that.
Okay, fair. And you're talking about the Rings of Power specifically, because
Well,
I think that's a completely fair statement, right? I mean, if we're finding it inspirational in some regard, hey, that's something that you took away from it, and
As
you
an
are to be
artist,
congratulated for taking something away from that
as an
show.
artist, you
What I-
cannot not be inspired.
What
Impossible.
what I have found is, as I'm a historian in the humanities, I'm focused on the larger human picture, which is universal to all of us, even if we're different from each other. So I think I'm ready to be generous in how people handle things. I find in the reenacting world, oh, you're not wearing, the right wool with 5 threads per inch, and
Yeah.
no. We want people to participate to
Yes,
grow in their
yes.
understanding.
I see that your tunic was sewn on a
There
sewing
you go.
machine.
There you go.
So, Steve, does that?
I
come
have
with
heard that somebody actually said that out loud.
Yep.
So I
And
get it.
what it is, okay, small minds want control of a small area. So they're going to take their little small universe and go deep in that. And they become irrelevant to the rest of us, the rest of humanity. I'm more ready to say, what can I do? Let's see what they got. What are the positive things about that I could do as a takeaway? But I'm oriented that way. And people might find me to be, I don't know, naive or, lightweight or something. I'm not a lightweight.
See, Steve, I would describe that attitude as not miserable. So
Yeah. Yes.
that to me
I-
that makes perfect sense, and I may in fact requote you on that at some
See,
point.
Steve,
Not to toot my own horn, but I think a large souled person those are the kinds of human beings that stand out and have an effect generation after generation. Socrates,
well, geez.
Plato, Aristotle,
Aristotle.
Jesus, George Washington,
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Sure.
Oh, by the way, we're coming up on Juneteenth, okay? A word on that. Yeah, I get it within the Black community, Texas, they found out on June in 65 that they were freed 3 years before. Hold on a second. That's the Emancipation Proclamation. If you see Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, that's worthy of our attention, because we get to see Lincoln saying, that was an executive order, and when I'm gone, it could be undone. We need an amendment to the Constitution. Right on.
That's
Right
heavy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
All
good
right.
stuff. And
It
I
is an
encourage
excellent
people to
movie.
see Lincoln
Wait,
this
Steve,
week.
Steve,
Very
Steve,
good.
Can I start watching the Amazon Lord of the Rings from season 2? I don't want to watch season 1. Can
Go
I just
ahead.
start season? Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you've read that. You're familiar with the material. Go ahead.
Yeah,
It's
because
fine. You
season
won't
one
have.
season 1 to me was very disappointing.
Yeah, start into season 2. I think
Okay.
you'll find it intriguing. They did a better job.
All right,
Okay,
we
thank
are out of time. So, Steve, where are we going to be able to find you physically at Origins?
I'll be under the red shirts, the big red T-shirt. The Canadian contingent will not be there because of certain realities current.
Oh,
But
right.
their American brothers will be there from Dayton, and so I'll be under the big red
Okay.
T-shirt. somewhere
And
in
this
there.
is going to be in the main gaming hall.
Yes.
And I will see you Wednesday. So if anybody can't find Steve, come by the Wargame HQ, which is on the map. I will almost certainly be there. And I will direct you to the glorious Silmarillion reenactment.
Well, Steve, why are you wearing red? That's very British of you.
It's black.
No. You're going to be wearing red.
No, that's just the banner.
Whatever.
Oh,
That's just the banner.
I'm not them. I'm under them.
Oh, sorry.
I'm the American attached to them.
Right.
Okay.
Right. All right, folks, we got to run. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I especially want to thank Steve. Check his what's going to be just an amazing display of miniature stuff. Play if you can. I will help folks find him if necessary. And Steve, once again, I also would like to extend my appreciation for your good sportsmanship last time when nothing worked, and then the following time when I screwed it up. So
it's a gift to be invited to be interviewed on
Steve,
this program.
it's been a delight, and I am positive we will have you back maybe not too long from now, actually, because I wouldn't mind hearing after Origins how you feel like it went.
Okay.
So, all right, everybody, have a great rest
good.
of the night. We'll see you all again soon.
Look forward to seeing you.
Steve, hang around for a minute.